Hello, welcome to another episode of Dr. Bertetta's Beginner Guitar Theory. If you've been around for a while, welcome back. If you're new, I appreciate you stopping by. Either way, if you stick with the lesson, hope you enjoy what it is we're going to learn about today. So, if you have been around for a while, and you stuck with me through, learning scale, learning intervals, learning scales, learning chords, and maybe have begun to, as I recommended these last two episodes, you've learned your chord shapes, and you're learning just to put different chords together. Okay, maybe you're doing that. Maybe you found, maybe you came up with something pretty groovy, and you like it. So hopefully if you do that, you write it down or record yourself. I would recommend both. So here we're moving in towards, ideas behind making music proper, so to speak. Proper in the sense that, you're thinking about, rather than just kind of randomly putting things together, you're, putting some thought into what it is you want to say with your guitar. Particularly, too, if you're kind of a beginning songwriter, singer-songwriter, this might be really helpful, especially helpful to you as well, I would think. Because we're going to kind of learn the rudimentary kind of music theory rules. Not that rules have to be kept, of course, but at least we get a foundation of the rules and how basically Western music works. Okay, these rules, of course, they aren't the defining, the defining characteristics of Western music. Western music existed long before the theory. So the theory is just used to explain why it is that, we call music sounds like music and why it sounds good or we're accustomed to it in our ear. Of course, rules are meant to be broken, and that's especially true, of course, in modern music, at least, say rock and roll, and after that, and a lot of other types of music are about breaking these rules. But I think in order to break the rules, it's kind of important to know what the rules are. So, what we're going to talk about today is what's called chord function and diatonic harmony. Two different kind of things that are they're deeply related. Two different sort of ideas, and we're going to talk about both of them in turn. So, as you know by now, if you've been watching these videos for a while, if you're new to this channel and you don't know these types of things that we're going to talk about here in just a minute or two, go back to the previous videos, particularly the ones on chords. Say the first one on chords is going to be of utmost importance for you right now. But so as we've learned, there are 7 chords in a major scale. All right, and they're each assigned numbers using the Roman numeral system. Okay, so as we've seen, same with me here. If you're just kind of learning, C major, D minor, E minor. The 3, 4, F major, 5, G major, 6, A minor, 7, B diminished. So that's the chords in order, and we spent the previous 2 episodes really talking, learning how to play those chords up and down the neck. So that's learning them, from the first scale degree, the first chord to the 7th chord. So when we're talking about, what we're going to be talking about chords today with chord function is the way, different sorts of families or these functions that these chords are assigned to. So the first family, I'll just call them a family here, is what's called the tonic. Okay? And T for short is how it's usually used in various musical textbooks. So the tonic chord, the tonic family consists of 3 chords. You have your 1 chord, and we're using C still as the examples, is C major. We've learned that. So the key takes its name after that note and that chord, C major. 2 other chords that belong to the tonic family are the 3 chord, E minor, and the 6 chord, A minor. So why do these chords belong to the same family? Well, let's just look at an example here. With C, the C chord, and we've looked at the spellings of these chords before, we have the C, E, and the G. Okay? With the E chord, we have an E, B, and a G. So in other words, the one chord, or the C and the E minor, they share two notes. Okay? So that's going to apply to all 1 and 3 chords, no matter what key you're in. Same thing here with A minor. A minor is spelled A-C-E. So again, these 3 chords share those 2 notes with each other. So they belong to the same family. Could apply the same principles to the next family of chords called the subdominant, or subdom for short, or even shorter if you like, just old classic SD, subdominant. The 2 chords that belong to this family are the D minor and the F major. So in other words, the 2 chord and the 4 chord. And again, if we looked at the notes, we'd see that they share 2 in common. The last family is what's called the dominant family, D for short. Here we have the 5 chord, in our case here G, and we have again the 7 chord, which is B diminished. So we've all become accustomed to the way, music sounds kind of in general, okay? No matter what sort of genre we like, most music in one way or another, are going to, adhere to what we're going to talk about here or derivate from that. But again, these ideas I'm going to express to you and teach you are kind of the foundations for where those deviations come from. So, moving into talking about diatonic harmony. And diatonic harmony usually kind of applied to, in fields of composed music, classical music, that kind of stuff. But we can apply the same principles here. And we're going to see some things, hear some things that probably in one way or another sound very familiar. So, a sort of very generic way of understanding kind of how music works, so to speak, is that songs tend to begin in a place of stability. Okay, the tonic chord might be introduced, whatnot, but it's our starting off point. So we're home, and so as music progresses, there's this interplay between the stability and growing tension, and then a return back to stability or home, right? And this can happen in a whole lot of ways, right? You can go from stability to a little bit of tension, back to stability, to major tension, then a return, or any combination really you can think of. It's going to do, that's what music consists of, most of the time anyway. So the reason behind why this movement works and how you can create that stability and tension in chords is, the nature of the chords themselves and the types of tones or scale degrees that they consist of. So if you watched, I think episode 1 or 2, when we were talking about intervals, I introduced the terms, that some notes, or scale degrees was the term 1 through 7, applying each to a different note, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, starting with C, that some notes are more stable than others, okay? And so the most stable note would be the 1. So if we're in the key of C, that's home, okay? Whether you're playing it as a chord or you're playing it as a note, that's home. That's ultimate stability, if you're in the key of C. If you're in the key of A, then A is home, wherever you play it. Okay? The next 2 most stable tones are the 3 and the 5. And the reason why the 3 and the 5 are the second most stable is because, as we talked in the first episode about chords, the 1, the 3, and the 5, those notes or those scale degrees is what makes up the chord, right? So again, just for example, good old trusty C. C is the 1, E is the 3, G is the 5. And I go back to C and back to E. Okay? So that all consists of stable tones. Now let's look at the another member of the chord family, A minor. A, okay, what degree is that? A is the 6th, okay, so an unstable tone. So I have A open 5th string. My second note that I'm playing here on the 4th string, 2nd fret, what is that? That's an E. So that's a stable tone. And then I have another C, or I have a C, which is another stable tone. Okay? So it has one unstable tone, and the same would be said of the E minor as well. Okay? One unstable tone, two stable tones. The F is spelled F-A-C. So F, what is F? The 4. A is the 6. And C is the 1. So here it's in contrast, right? Two unstable tones, or two, I should say, active, and one stable. Okay. The dominants. Okay. G, for example. G is the 5. B is the 7. And D is the 2. Okay. So this has one stable and two unstable. So in relationship to, so they're the same, but the G is a little bit more unstable than the F. Why is that? Because if we were to rank 1, 3, and 5 in terms of stability, 3 would be more stable than 5. Okay, so F is a little more stable than G. So the less stable a chord is, its energy is to move, because it consists of your more active tones. They want to move somewhere. Typically they want to move up to the next highest note or down to the next highest note, whether that's separated by a whole step or a half step. Of the most active tones, or unstable active tones, the 4 and the 7. Okay, so in this case, the F and the B. Why are these the most active? Because they kind of have the most energy towards moving. Okay, why is that? Because the 4 is, if we remember our scales and our scale formula, the 4 is only separated from the 3 by a half step. So its energy is to go down, and that's going to be a resolution for the 4. Of course, it can go up. Okay. Similarly, so, the 4 wants to go to the 3, but what's the most stable tone of all? The 1, right? So in our case, C. Well, what's the 7? B. So that wants to move up to C. So they have these inherent drives to move to the next closest note, which in this case is a half step. Okay? We'll talk a lot more about the importance of these half steps and where they are in future lessons. So that's kind of, again, the underlying principles to why these chords and why music works the way it does. So, again, these are the quote-unquote, the theory behind what sounds good, give or take your tastes, whatnot. But to understand kind of the basic principles, we're going to start with just looking at these chords in relationship to how they move from one another. So here's this chart that you'll, probably find online, or, definitely like college level music textbooks, which is where I ripped it off from. So we start with, I'll keep this in my hand for now. We're going to start, for example, we're sitting down to write our first song. Okay, and we think of this, we're only dealing with basic major and minor chords, the one, that you learn in the beginning. If you've been watching, this channel, then our last couple lessons. So let's just say we're going to start with the 1. Okay, good old 1. Millions of songs start on the 1. Since we're in C, we're going to start with the C chord. Okay, so according to diatonic harmony, for a kind of a smooth movement or a slower building of tension, I have a couple options. I can go from the C to the D minor. It's kind of almost like a choose your own adventure. It can get a lot more complex than this. So I go from the 1 to the 2. Okay, well, of course, you know, there's nothing that says I can't go to the 7 from the 2, which in this case I'm playing what's called a B minor 7 flat 5. You could do that, it sounds cool, but the tendencies, 2, 5, and then so we're in the dominant. Oh, there should be a D there. The dominant goes back down to the 1. So G, C. In jazz, by the way, if you're a jazz fan, everyone, you know, get into jazz. One of the backbones of jazz music, you could say, is this movement of 2, 5, 1. Find that everywhere in jazz. So we've just created our first song. Okay? Nothing fancy, but it sounds decent to the ear, right? Okay, so let's say I want to go from the 1 to the 4 to the 5 to the 1. 1, 4, 5, 1. Now, if 2, 5, 1 is kind of, you know, synonymous, roughly speaking, with jazz, 1, 4, 5 is the backbone of blues and then later rock and country as well. 1, 4, 5. Famous progression. Millions of songs you know are written using 1, 4, 5 as their kind of basic movement. Okay, so other options, you know, again, sticking 1, 4, 7, 1. Okay, that sounds pretty good too. C, F, B minor 7 flat 5, 1. Again, this is the, of all these chords, this B minor 7 flat 5, which I'll teach you what that even means in a later lesson. That is the most unstable of the chords, and so it wants to go to 1. Alternatively, you know, you can replace the 1, say, with a 3. I'm not going to go through every permutation here. You can figure this out on your own, and I encourage you to try it, all different combinations. But let's say 3, E minor, D minor, that's my 2, 5, 1, back to the 1. In this case, they're both at the tonic chord, but here I'm starting with the 3, I'm resolving on the 1. So I do encourage you to, you know, try the different combinations. And if you can, like, you write them down, if you know a person that, you know, if you're the type of person that writing these things down helps you to put what you're seeing and what you're writing into practice, then by all means do it. You know, do the different permutations. Try to figure them all out, you know. I don't know how many there are exactly using this model, but you can do it, okay? Another thing that I wanted to point out, though, is let's say you kind of, you know, using this example we just started at, the 3 to the 2, what did you do, 2 to the 5 to the 1, or whatever it was. We went from the 3 in our tonic family, and we ended with the 1 in the tonic family. So anytime you play, you know, a chord from one particular family, try substituting another chord from that family and see how that sounds. So let's say I do, like, you know, 1, 4, 5. 1, C, F, G, C. All right? Well, maybe I want to start 1, 4, 5, 3. One of the, you know, it might sound a little weird, sound a little different, but that's also part of the tension building process. You're building an expectation. Most listeners, they start hearing this, even if they're aware or unaware of what they're hearing, they know it by now that they're expecting that 1. So why not give them the unexpected? Oh, something dark, you know, whatever. So mess around like that. Maybe you're doing something that, it cycles through the chord progression. What we're talking about here is building chord progressions. So let's say we're doing something that, say, 1, 4, 5 over and over again. C, F, G, F. So again, now I've heard it 3 times. I'm really expecting, the C to come around. I'm going to throw in the A minor. Maybe next time, C instead of the F, I throw in the D minor. G, E minor. Okay? But so you can play around with these things. And if you, follow this kind of movement and substitute the chords that consist of these families, you're going to start making things that, hopefully you like. You're going to, you're going to know what you like. You're going to know the sound that, you're trying to express. And again, this works particularly well if you're a singer-songwriter, because, as you're playing the chords, you're just messing around maybe, and a melody comes out, and that melody matches with some lyrics you've written, or whatever your process might be. It's going to be good to know, how this stuff works. So, again, sort of just a primer on the ideas of chord functions, okay? That chords belong to certain families. We can understand them, I should say, as belonging to these different families, and these different families have tendencies to go in different, directions, certain directions. And so play around with that. Another thing you might do, instead of just going tonic, subdominant, dominant, why not try this? Tonic, subdominant, tonic, another subdominant, F, tonic, and then skip over the subdominant again and go to a dominant. Okay? So you're not just going linearly in this pattern, but you're playing with the pattern and what goes what. So you can always backtrack, right? Until finally you come to a point of resolution, if that's how you want your song to end. So, that's going to be it for today's lesson. I hope what you learned here, was instructive in terms of not only, the method of playing the actual guitar, but how to begin to make music as well. So as always, keep on watching, keep on learning, keep on rocking. See you next time.